for this training. And then I'm going to stop my video so that you can see the slides clearly. And if anytime you cannot hear me or there's any issues with the training, please just stop me or put it in the chat box. We have a small group today, there's almost 20 here, so it's no problem for you to stop and ask questions, and that's what we're here to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, what are background checks? And why do we do them? So background checks are to help us keep a safe environment, not only for our children, but our staff in child care and child welfare programs here in the state of Arkansas. And they are part of Act 572 from 2017 that requires an FBI background check for everyone that comes into contact with children. Okay. So who needs a background check? When we talk about the background check, we're going to look at 3 critical parts. The first part being the Arkansas child maltreatment. All staff, janitors, therapists, volunteers, and student observers need an Arkansas child maltreatment check. The next portion of the background check is the Arkansas state criminal check. So all staff, janitors, therapists also need a criminal record check. And then you'll see that volunteers and student observers are in a gray area. And this is because depending on their role in your facility, they may need a criminal and FBI as well. However, if they are only observing short periods of time and it is not a regular scheduled observation or volunteer time, they may not. They may only need the Arkansas maltreatment check. And so we always want to remind you to check your minimum licensing standards and reach out to your licensing specialist, because they will be able to tell you exactly what that volunteer or that student observer needs and whether or not they're going to need the criminal and the FBI as well as the maltreatment. And so just a reminder, everyone that is unsupervised, that you count in your ratio, or has any type of staff roles with children will need a background check, and that includes your transportation staff. So when do background checks expire? The FBI and the state criminal record check are both good for 5 years, and the Arkansas child maltreatment check expires after 2 years. Does anyone have any questions about who needs a background check or how often they need to be completed? Okay, let's go on. We're going to talk about some disqualifying offenses that could disqualify a candidate from working in childcare. And the first couple that we're going to talk about are just a small amount that are on the full list in the licensing requirements book. And you can find that in section 110. Okay, so when we're looking at these offenses, we are looking at a misdemeanor conviction and a felony conviction. So if they are listed in your minimum licensing standards, and it's the first one, just an example, is an assault in the first, second, or third degree. If the assault charge was a misdemeanor, they would be eligible after 5 years. If the charge was a felony, they would be eligible after 10 years of that offense. So there's just a couple here on this page: breaking and entering, computer crimes against minors, domestic battery, and of course, assault. And again, this is just a small amount from the list in section 110. And I would really encourage you to familiarize yourself with this list so that you know if an applicant comes to you and they tell you something that they have on their history, then you have an idea of what would be a disqualifying offense. And then we have a couple more here that are endangering the welfare of a minor, forgery, interference with court-ordered custody, permitting abuse of a minor, resisting arrest, and theft of property. And those theft charges can include things like misdemeanor shoplifting. So there's just a few there that we wanted to talk about. Now, those are disqualifying offenses with the time expiration of 5 years for misdemeanor and 10 years for a felony. However, there are permanently prohibited offenses, and these offenses do not have a time period. And you can see the full list again there in section 110 in your regulation book. However, we've got a few listed: abuse of an impaired person, arson, capital murder, kidnapping, sexual assault. So you can see that these crimes are ones that if they have been convicted, they would not be eligible at any time to work in a childcare setting. Okay, did anyone have any questions regarding the disqualifying offenses or prohibited offenses? Okay, so just a few facts here that we wanted to remind everyone about the electronic background system that we use here now with the Division of Child Care. All licensed programs must use the NICAR system, and that is the National Information Consortium of Arkansas. A background check through NICAR includes the state criminal background check, the federal criminal background check, which is your FBI, your fingerprints, and the National Sex Offender Registry check. And when the state police are doing the state criminal record check, they are also checking for in-state sex offender registry as well. Providers must register for a subscription account with NICAR in order to run those background checks. And we do have the link here. And if any providers would like the PDF version of this slideshow after the training, put your email in the chat box and we'll be sure to send it to you so that you have all of these links very easily accessible. Providers must pay an annual subscription, and currently that price is $150 yearly. So just as a reminder, this does not include the Arkansas child maltreatment requests. Those are submitted separately through the Central Registry, and we have the link there as well. Do we have any questions regarding those key points? We'll move on. Now we're going to go through the step-by-step process of submitting a background check. Once you have subscribed to the INA system, you are ready to go ahead and submit your first applicants. And the first thing that you will need to do, and the most important, crucial piece of this entire process, is completing the consent form. This document can be found on the background check website, and we also have that linked here. So please make sure that you select childcare and that you are entering all the information correctly. You'll see for reason for background check, there's going to be several different options. Childcare facilities will always need to select CHI childcare. There are going to be other options for child welfare. If your facility does provide childcare and child welfare and you are licensed under both, make sure that the employee that you are submitting for, if they're going to be working in your childcare side of your business, that you select childcare and not child welfare, because you will get a not approval for the consent form being incorrect. And another key point is you're going to be asked what your facility number is. So just remember that that is going to be your facility license number. It is not your facility phone number. So once you have submitted this form, a copy is going to be emailed to the address that you provide, and the PDF is going to be 3 complete pages. So the first page will be the applicant information. And this is a great point in which you can see if the applicant has lived out of state in the last 5 years, and you can go ahead and submit for those out of state regulatory checks. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when it comes to the out of state process. But right now would be a great time to go ahead and get those initiated. The second page is related to the Arkansas state check, and this must be signed and notarized, and it must be accurate. So please be sure that the notary date and the applicant's signature date match, that the stamp is clear, and all of the information is there. The third page is related to the federal check and a privacy statement, and this is going to just be a signature and a date. And again, please take your time with this and ensure that this step is done properly. If you make a mistake after you have uploaded it, you can contact our unit and correct the form. We are able to re-upload and submit that for you. You do not have to resubmit your applicant again if there is a mistake on the consent form. Does anyone have any questions regarding the consent form or what is required? And again, if you have any questions, you can put that in the chat box as well. So now that your consent form is completed, you are ready to submit your applicant into the NICAR system. You're going to log into your account here, and we have that linked as well. Once you are logged in, you're going to click on the search tab, and this is where you're going to fill out the applicant's information. It's a great idea to have a copy of the applicant's driver's license while you're completing this section. That way you have the correct information that matches their driver's license or state issued ID. If this information does not match, they will be turned away from fingerprinting, and so their background check will not be processed. So this is just another part where we do see a lot of mistakes where the name is incorrect. Maybe a maiden name is on the ID and you may put in a married name where the date of birth may be incorrect, and those will hinder the applicant from being fingerprinted at the county DHS office. So we just want to make sure that you take your time with this and enter all of the information correctly. And you are going to upload your consent form here. So you can see that it says signed consent document. That is where you will browse on your computer and you will insert that file. The next item there is the purpose, and you're going to select CHI for childcare. And again, you may have some multiple different purposes, different statutes. You may have a CHI or DDS if you are a facility that is licensed under both. However, if this applicant's going to be working in your childcare side, you will need to make sure that it says CHI. And then the next information is going to be the FBI information. And again, this is where that state issued ID is going to come in to help you with the eye color, hair color, height and weight. So once you have all of your information put in here and you click submit, you are going to go to the confirmation page. And again, this is very important that you review your work. So take a few seconds and review the information before you do your final submission. And this is a time where if you see that you did make a mistake, you can click the back button and you can go back and fix any information that you need to. And then when you're ready to submit, you can go back, and just a reminder, if you do that, make sure that your consent form is reattached. And then once you submit, you're going to get a confirmation page. Sorry about that. You're going to get a confirmation page that you can see over to the right hand of the slide. It's going to give you your transaction number and your search ID. You can print this confirmation so that when you are scheduling your fingerprints, you have that CHI number, the transaction number, and you can print that also for the applicant so they have a copy as well. Now you are ready to schedule your fingerprints. We have that linked here as well. You may get an email from the NICAR system that has a link to the fingerprint scheduler that says that you can go ahead and schedule those. If you submit multiple at a time, you may not get those emails. So it's great to save this to your favorites on your Internet Explorer or Chrome, whatever you use, so that you can just go in and schedule and you don't have to wait on that email. So please make sure that your applicant is no longer in your pending tab before they go to their fingerprint appointment. If they are still under the pending tab in your account, this means that the Arkansas State Police have not processed the state criminal results, and therefore they won't be able to get fingerprinted. So you will see the applicant moved under your history tab at that point. And that's just a little tip. It's typically done immediately. However, if the applicant has lived out of state, it may take a few hours or even 24 hours for them to get that processed. You're going to click here to make an appointment on the fingerprint scheduling website. Click fingerprinting. And you're going to be taken to a page that's going to ask you for the applicant's information as well as their transaction number. You're going to enter your statute, which will be CHI, and then you're going to enter your transaction number. And there will be 2 zeros in front of the 7-digit number. So it's 00, and then you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's your full transaction number. And just a tip here, you see that there is a blank spot for the E number. This is not a required field. However, if this applicant is being reprinted because they were rejected the first time, and you got a notice that included the E number, this is where you would put that in to schedule. Okay. Next, you're going to get a summary page where you can review the information, and you will go on to click fingerprinting. Now you will choose the location where you would like to be fingerprinted. You can type in your city. There's also a convenient map to where all of the locations are. This way, if you have an applicant that lives in a different city than where they work, if there's a county location that's closer and more convenient for them, they can go there. It does not have to be the same county office in which your facility is located in. Select your location. You're going to put in some basic information here for the applicant, including an email address. That way they will get a confirmation of their scheduled appointment, and select your time. And please remember that the applicant needs to take their state issued ID and their transaction number to the DHS fingerprint technician. And the identification must match the information that you have submitted into NICAR, or they will not be able to be fingerprinted. And then just a tip here that you will only be able to use the same email address a few times. So if you're a director and you typically would put your email here to get that confirmation, you may not get it if you've used your email several times. So I would please make sure to use the applicant's email. If you need to have them like forward that to you, that's fine. But just to avoid you not getting an email, I would not use the same email consistently. Let's see, Stephanie, I see your question. So Stephanie asked, did you say we do or do not have to go to the same county location? You do not. The applicant can be fingerprinted at any DHS county office. Yep, Brenda just put your answer there. So any county office, and then there are Arkansas live scan locations as well if you don't have a county office near you, and we can provide you with those locations. They do charge a fee. So if you're needing a different location, let us know, but you can go to any county office. So whatever is most convenient for you. If they are on the list at the fingerprint scheduling, then you can make an appointment there. So now that you have scheduled the fingerprint appointment, you can go ahead and submit your Arkansas Child Maltreatment Registry check. And this is the last step in the background check process. These requests are processed by Central Registry, and they can be completed. There's a link here on the screen. And you will need to complete the request, get it notarized, and there's some other information that you'll be putting on the request. Now, one thing that we want to remind you is that you must list 5 years of residency, and you will be asked if the applicant has lived out of state in the last 5 years. Please make sure to check yes. And then, of course, you will be listing those addresses on the request. Now, when you are submitting the Arkansas Child Maltreatment request, make sure that you're selecting the second option, and this will ensure that the background check unit will be able to see those results. The very first option says you are a teacher for a school in Arkansas, and that may be deceiving for some of our child care facilities, and they may click that option. That is actually for the Department of Education. So you'll want to go on to option 2 that says potential or current employee of a child care facility that is licensed under Arkansas Department of Human Services. So just a little reminder there that we may not be able to see those if you do not select option 2. And we have the contact information here for the Central Registry, their phone number and email address. If you have any questions or any issues that you need to look into your request, you can always reach out to them. Does anyone have any questions regarding the request for the child maltreatment? Okay, we will go on. So I wanted to talk about a few special conditions that we have mentioned a little bit. There are some agencies that will require the submissions of 2 background checks and 2 maltreatment checks for each applicant. And these agencies are school districts and also DDS facilities. So any facilities that are under the Division of Developmental Disabilities. And both of these programs will have to submit everything twice, because with the school district, if you are under a licensed DHS facility, you will need to submit those for us, but then you will also be submitting them for the Department of Education. And then DDS facilities will do the same. They will submit under their child care, but you will also have a DDS statute in your system as well. If you believe that you need to be completing 2 sets, or if you need a statute added to your account, or you have any questions regarding those, please feel free to reach out to us. We will make sure that we get you all of the contact information for NICAR, and we will help you get that set up so that you have those options on your account. Okay. So now we are going to talk a little bit about the out-of-state requirements. So if a potential employee has lived out of the state of Arkansas in the last 5 years, they must complete checks from all of the states that they have lived in during that period. So for example, if you're submitting for an applicant and they lived in Texas last year and they lived in Montana the year before that, you will need to complete the required checks for both of those states. So any state they've lived in the last 5 years. You will need to complete 3 components for the out-of-state checks, and that includes a criminal background check, a child maltreatment check, and a sex offender registry check. Each state is different on how they process these checks and what is included. And some of them are going to, they're going to include the sex offender registry as part of their criminal, or they may include it on their child maltreatment registry. And some states, I believe Mississippi, they include all 3 in one check now. So you can find more information on each state by following the link here. This is the Interstate Child Care Background Check Contact List. And you will see that some states are listed in red, and they have a note there that they're an NFF state. So these are national fingerprint file states, which means that they will be included in our criminal background check when they are fingerprinted. So for these states that are listed in red, you only need the child maltreatment and the sex offender registry. And again, we do have this list here available. And on the next slide, we also have a link to our website. So when you go there, you can select the state and it is going to tell you exactly what's needed for each one, because we do know that the out-of-state process can be overwhelming and there's a lot of information and each state does things differently. So we've put together a list and you can just select Texas and it'll tell you for criminal child and the sex offender registry what is needed, the instructions and links on where to go to complete those. I'll show you on the next slide. So this is going to have the link to our website. And it's also going to include some additional information on our website. We have some special conditions for Tennessee and Oklahoma. Those both will be done by our regulatory unit here with the division. We will run those, so you do not need to do anything for Tennessee or Oklahoma. You also do not need to submit record checks for California as they are a closed record state. And Arizona will only release the child abuse and neglect results, which is the child maltreatment. They will not release criminal records. They are a partially closed record state. And again, our website there has the instructions for each state just to simplify things so that you're not trying to guess on which state needs what. We try to keep that updated as frequently as possible. So if you see anything on that site that you're like, oh wait, they've updated that, please reach out and let us know. We try to stay in contact with those states to make sure that we're giving you accurate information. But if you see anything, please reach out and we will be sure to make a change. So the other question that we get frequently is about applicants that have lived in a different country in the last 5 years. You do not need any results for applicants that have resided out of the country. Just be sure that they list those addresses on their child maltreatment request, but you won't need to require them to do any record checks. Do we have any questions regarding the out-of-state process or what states are required at this point? So now we're going to talk about where you will send these results. If the state requires information to be sent directly to our agency, you can use the information here on the screen. You can mail those to us. If they allow it to be emailed, you can use our email address, backgroundcheck@dhs.arkansas.gov. That mailbox is used strictly for out-of-state purposes so that we can make sure we get those processed quickly for you. And again, we have our link there to our out-of-state section of our website to answer any questions that you may have. And if you are needing any assistance, please feel free to give us a call while you're doing these out-of-state checks. We want to help. We know that the process can be confusing at times, so we will do our best to help you through that. And we're here to help. Okay, so do we have any questions regarding out-of-state results or where to send them? If not, we're going to talk about a few things that we can't stress enough. So these are a few items that will help you, that are final reminders and that we think that are probably the biggest areas where we see a little bit of a slowdown in the background check process. So one thing that we want to remind you all of is that a staff member may not begin work until the Arkansas State Criminal Record Check result has been returned as satisfactory. And what that means is that your overall NICAR status will be in a provisional state. And the individual must always be supervised by a staff member who has completed background checks. So if you want to hire this applicant, as long as they're in provisional, you can go ahead and hire them and put them in a classroom if you need to, but they must always be supervised by an approved staff member and never be left alone with children. And this can be beneficial if you're needing to hire someone quickly to, float in to do breaks for staff or bathroom breaks or help with lunches or whatever it may be. So just make sure that they're always supervised. And again, you can find that in your minimum licensing handbook. And you can always reach out to your licensing specialist if you have questions about as an applicant working while they're in a provisional status. Please make sure that when you do that, that you have initiated any out-of-state required checks. Once they're initiated and they have been put in a provisional status, they can go ahead and start working and doing your onboarding process and your trainings. You can always log into your NICAR account to see the status of your applicant. Once you go to your history tab, you will see an overall status, and it may be pending, provisional, approved, not approved. And we're going to talk about those in just a minute, but you can always log in there and go to your history tab and see the status of those applicants. If they are still pending, they may not begin working. Again, make sure all information is correct before submitting. The applicant's name and date of birth must match their state issued ID or passport. And a few things that are new for this month that we want to remind you is please notify our background check unit when a staff member is no longer employed. If they're in a provisional status, we can go ahead and update their status and get them moved out of that provisional state if they are no longer working with you. So we may be waiting on out-of-state information or for the fingerprints to be completed, and they may be provisional. However, that person may not work there anymore, and we can get them updated. So you can always give us a call. You can send us an email, and we'll be happy to take care of that for you. But if you can, please notify us when they are no longer employed. And when you're emailing the background check unit, please include the applicant's search ID number. So sometimes we get an email with an attached maltreatment result or other information, and it makes it a lot quicker if we have the search ID that we can just pull up that applicant. There may be multiple people in the system that have the same first and last name, and there's no other identification in that email. So always include the search ID number. If you are not sure how to find the search ID number in your NICAR account, give us a call and we will be happy to walk you through that process. Do we have any questions? Okay. So here are just a few important phone numbers that we wanted to make sure that you have. And again, if anyone wants the PowerPoint in a PDF form, we will be sure to send that to you for ease of access. So we have the background check unit, Mainline here. We also have the NICAR subscription and help desk numbers. These numbers can be used if you're having an issue logging into your account. They can also be contacted for any payment or invoice questions, password changes, or technical support issues that you may be having. If you have any other questions regarding the status of your check or submitting an applicant, please give the background check unit a call directly. NICAR won't be able to help you with that. And then, of course, we have the Central Registry's phone number there, also for the Arkansas child maltreatment checks. So now let's talk about some possible delays in the process. And I think this is a lot of the questions that we get is, what is the delay on getting to an approved status? So if you've received a notification that DHS will do more research or see that an applicant is in pending, that just means that the Arkansas State Police are still doing research on that applicant. It rarely happens. However, this can be due to incorrect information being put in, or like I said, if the applicant's lived out of state recently, they may have to do more of a manual search to find that information. Typically, these will be out of pending within 24 to 72 hours. If you believe that there is an incorrect delay, please feel free to contact us and we'll be happy to look and see exactly why it's still in a pending status. Now, we also wanted to talk about some of the statuses that you will see when you're logged in. Your overall status that says pending, it could be because of what I just talked about, that state police are still researching. And then it also could be because the state criminal report requires additional information from the applicant. So we may be sending a letter to the applicant and asking them for some additional information. And then some of the provisional delays. So if you have a provisional applicant, this could be because the fingerprints have not been completed. It also could be because the fingerprints were rejected and they will have to be printed a second time. It could also be because the federal report requires additional information. This could also, we could also be waiting on the Arkansas child maltreatment to be completed, or out of state checks have not been completed. If you have an applicant that has been in a provisional status for, over a week, I would reach out to us or take a look and see if you've submitted that child maltreatment, see if it still shows that fingerprints are pending. Those would be reasons that it will still be in provisional. And again, we'll be happy to take a look. Just give us a call and we can let you know exactly what else we need. And so the last one would be the not approved status. And you will get a not approved status within 1 business day if the consent form is incomplete, or it's the wrong form, or if it is inaccurate. So that means the notary stamp is not legible or it's missing altogether. If the notary section is missing signatures or dates, or they don't match. If the notary has signed that they the date as 2/24/22 and the applicant signed and dated a different date, it will be rejected as not approved. You may also see a not approval if the applicant was submitted more than once. So if there's a duplicate entry. And then the last reason that it may be a not approved is if the fingerprints or the Arkansas child maltreatment check has not been completed within 45 days of submission. Once you submit your applicant, go ahead and get your child maltreatment and your fingerprints done as soon as possible. Otherwise, you may get a non approval. Now, when it comes to the out-of-state process, we do understand that those take a significant amount of time. So we will not approve an applicant if you are waiting on out of state. We do know that you are kind of in their hands, and some states take significantly longer than others. So, you're not going to be not approved for that. They'll just stay in a provisional state. However, if it's an error with your paperwork, you are probably going to get a non approved within 1 to 2 business days. And if that happens, it's almost guaranteed that it's a consent form issue. So you can always reach out to us and we will be happy to take a look. We can get you to send us a corrected consent form and then we can upload that. So if you get a not approval instantly, don't resubmit the applicant. Reach out to us first. See if it's something that we can remedy together so that you're not getting charged a second time. Okay, and then I think that's about it. Do we have any questions that we did not cover, or any questions about anything that we talked about today? And we did record this training, so it's going to be posted on our website, as well as all of our past trainings. And we will do this each month. So we do it the last Thursday of every month. If you see anything that you have questions about, please feel free to reach out. You can email us. I'm going to make sure I'm going to put my email and my direct line in the chat box as well. And so if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We want to help. We know that you need these background checks done as soon as possible. And then, of course, if you have any suggestions about the training or things that you would like us to talk about next month, that you have questions or anything that we can go over, please feel free to send those to me in an email. I would love to see any suggestions that you may have. Okay, if there are no questions, I will see it's 12. So we finished a little bit early. Thank you for taking time to join us. I know that it's a kind of a nasty day for most of Arkansas, and I hope that you are all staying safe. I hope that you are all staying warm. And again, thank you for taking time out of your day to join in on this training with us. We hope that it was helpful, and we hope to see you next month. Share with your colleagues and other facilities. We would love to have them join us. So have a great rest of your afternoon.